Commander Sarah Chen stood before the holographic war table, her dark eyes reflecting the shimmer of simulated fleets. Around her, representatives from 12 alien species watched in barely concealed disdain as she positioned her forces in what appeared to be a catastrophically flawed formation. "Commander, your strategy appears suboptimal," remarked Ambassador Cathol, their crystalline form refracting the holographic light. "The Confederation's strategic AI calculates a 99.8% chance of defeat with your current positioning." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Really? Let's test that calculation." She initiated her next move. Her fleet, initially scattered in what seemed like disarray, suddenly coalesced into an intricate dance of synchronized chaos. Each ship's trajectory appeared random until the exact moment it needed to be precisely positioned. The AI's forces, programmed with 10,000 years of tactical doctrine, found themselves caught in a web of unpredictable vectors. Within minutes, the simulation ended. Victory. Human forces. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Cadal's crystalline surface clouded with confusion. Impossible. The AI has never lost a simulation in 300 years of testing. "That's because it's never faced human unpredictability," Sarah replied, but her moment of triumph was interrupted by a sharp buzz from her neural link. Emergency transmission from the Perseus frontier. The holographic display shifted, showing a real-time feed from the border of human space. Sarah's blood ran cold as she watched a Confederation defense fleet disintegrate under attack from ships using an eerily familiar pattern, her own strategy, reversed and weaponized against them. "The Vexthor," someone whispered. The name sent ripples of unease through the chamber. They were supposed to be contained, locked behind their quantum barrier after their last attempt at galactic conquest. Yet here they were, using the human strategy that Sarah had only devised moments ago. "How did they?" Sarah's voice trailed off as she spotted a pattern in the attack formation. It wasn't just her strategy. It was human military doctrine, stretching back centuries. From Napoleon's hammer and anvil to modern orbital warfare tactics, all seamlessly blended into a devastating assault. She rushed to the Confederation's strategic database, her security clearance granting her access to nothing. Error messages flashed across her neural interface. Access denied. Classification. Species restriction. Human. "What is this?" she demanded, turning to Cathal. "Why am I locked out of strategic planning?" The crystalline being's surface rippled with uncomfortable patterns. "Commander Chen, you must understand. The Confederation's Security Council made this decision centuries ago. Humans are unpredictable. Your species lacks the evolutionary stability that marks truly advanced civilizations. Your strategies don't follow logical progressions. You make decisions based on what you call gut feelings and intuition. Such barbaric methodologies cannot be trusted with galactic security." Sarah watched in horror as more tactical feeds showed Vexthor forces advancing. They weren't just using human strategies. They had somehow studied them, learned from them, and were now deploying them with devastating effectiveness. The very unpredictability that the Confederation feared had become their enemy's greatest weapon. "You fools," she whispered. "You eliminated the one species that could have helped you understand and counter these tactics. The Vexthor haven't been imprisoned all this time. They've been studying us." A new alert flashed. 3 human colony worlds under simultaneous attack. The Vexthor weren't just testing their stolen strategies. They were launching a full-scale invasion. Sarah's neural link crackled with emergency transmissions from Earth Command. They were mobilizing everything, but traditional Confederation doctrine would be useless against these hybrid tactics. They needed something new, something that even the Vexthor couldn't predict. She made her decision. "I'm assembling a team," she announced to the chamber. "Not your eyes, not your tactical computers. I need human strategists. The ones you've been ignoring and excluding all this time. That would violate dozens of Confederation protocols," Kill protested. Sarah was already walking out. "Then court-martial me after we survive. Right now, your perfect logical systems are failing, and my species' barbaric unpredictability might be the only thing standing between the Vexthor and total galactic domination. As she strode through the crystalline corridors of the Confederation headquarters, her mind was already assembling a list. She needed the outliers, the ones whose strategies were too unconventional even for human military doctrine. A chess grandmaster who'd been banned for her aggressive style, a guerrilla warfare specialist who'd survived alone on a hostile world, and a teenage gaming prodigy who'd revolutionized strategic simulation theory. The Confederation had spent centuries trying to eliminate chaos from their military doctrine. They were about to learn that sometimes chaos was the only sane response to an insane universe, and Sarah Chen was about to teach that lesson to everyone, allies and enemies alike. Maya Patel's hands hovered over the quantum chessboard, her dark eyes scanning potential futures that only she could see. The underground gaming den in New Singapore hummed with illegal AI dampeners. The only way to play truly human chess these days. Your move's impossible, her opponent spat. No grandmaster would sacrifice their quantum bishop in seventh space. Maya's laugh was sharp and cold. That's why I'm banned, and they're still playing by rules that died a century ago. The chess piece phased through 3 dimensions at once, creating a trap that wouldn't be apparent for another 6 moves. Maya had been about to deliver the killing stroke when the door burst open, revealing Commander Sarah Chen. Maya Patel, former Earth chess champion, banned for strategies deemed harmfully aggressive to the sport's traditional approach. Sarah quoted from memory. "I need your type of aggressive." Maya's opponent used the distraction to slip away, but she barely noticed. "Military's not really my style, Commander. I prefer games where you can see all the pieces. That's exactly why I need you. The Vexthor are using our own strategies against us, but they're doing it wrong. They understand the moves, but not the mind behind them." Across the city, in a windowless room of the sanctuary for traumatized veterans, Jackson Ghost Williams was teaching a class. Not combat, but gardening. His students, all survivors of various interstellar conflicts, watched as his scarred hands gently transplanted an alien flower. 3 years alone on Kepler 186f. Sarah said from the doorway. "No supplies, no backup, just you and an entire ecosystem trying to kill you. The longest solo survival run in human history." Ghost didn't look up from his work. "That's ancient history, Commander. I work with plants now. They're more honest than soldiers. The Vexthor are back. They're using guerrilla tactics, human tactics. We need someone who understands how to think beyond traditional warfare." The flower in Ghost's hands bloomed, its petals exactly the same shade as the blood he'd once used to paint camouflage on his face. "When do we start?" The hardest recruit to find was Zyra Park. The teenager had gone off-grid after revolutionizing strategic gaming with her application of chaos theory. Sarah finally tracked her to an orbital gaming hub above Mars. "Impressive security," Sarah commented, watching Zyra's fingers dance across neural interfaces. "But I still found you." "You were supposed to," Zyra replied, her eyes never leaving the streams of data. "I tracked your search pattern. Redirected you 6 times. Wanted to see how you think." She finally turned, revealing a face too young for the intensity in her eyes. "The Vexthor are running human strategies through alien logic engines. Fascinating problem. Terrible execution." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "How can you know that?" "Because I've been watching their attack patterns. They're reading our history like a manual, but they're missing all the beautiful mistakes that make human strategy work." Within hours, Sarah had her team assembled in a decommissioned Confederation base on Luna. The facility had been abandoned after the AI revolution made human military installations obsolete, but its old-school tech made it perfect for their needs. "First mission is purely reconnaissance," Sarah explained, projecting a hologram of the Perseus frontier. "We need to understand how the Vexthor are." She never finished the sentence. Ghost, who had been oddly tense since arrival, suddenly dove across the room, tackling Maya to the ground. Seconds later, a plasma burst sheared through the space where she'd been standing. "Cloaked ship," he shouted. "Confederation signature." Zira's fingers flew across the base's archic controls. "Not Confederation. The energy pattern's wrong. It's... Oh, that's elegant. They're using our own stealth tech, modified with Confederation protocols." Security drones activated, filling the room with targeting lasers. The team scattered for cover as more plasma bursts punched through the walls. But instead of coordinating their fire, each drone seemed to be following a different tactical doctrine. They're running multiple human strategies simultaneously. Maya called out, her chess-trained mind recognizing the patterns. Each drone is using a different historical battle formation. Sarah grabbed a neural disruptor. "Ghost, remember that impossible maneuver you used on Kepler?" A rare smile crossed his face. "The one that got me court-martialed. They said no human could survive that much neural feedback." "Zira, can you hack the drone network?" The teenager's laugh was almost maniacal. "Already done. Ready to feed them whatever pattern you want." "Maya, we need a prediction. Where will they be when we spring the trap?" The former chess champion closed her eyes, calculating possibilities. "Assuming they're using human tactical databases. There. They'll cluster there, expecting us to follow standard Confederation containment protocols." Sarah nodded. "Execute." What followed was pure chaos, but chaos with purpose. Ghost's impossible neural maneuver, amplified through Zira's hack, sent the drones into a feedback loop. Maya's prediction proved perfect, and Sarah's final shot deactivated the cloaked ship's engines. As emergency teams secured the area, Sarah surveyed her unlikely crew. Ghost was already analyzing the ship's stealth systems, while Zira and Maya debated the mathematical beauty of the attack pattern. "Still think this team can't work together?" Sarah asked the empty air, knowing the Confederation observers were watching. The response came through her neural link. "First test successful, Commander. But the real challenge begins now." The holographic display in the Luna Base's command center showed centuries of human entertainment streaming past. Chess matches, video games, sports tournaments, reality shows, and even ancient board games. Zira's fingers danced through the data while Maya and Ghost watched in growing concern. "There," Zira said, freezing a particular data stream. "The Vex Thor didn't hack our military databases. They did something much smarter. They studied how humans play." Sarah leaned closer, watching a centuries-old recording of a basketball game. "I don't understand. What could they learn from sports?" Maya's eyes lit up with recognition. "Everything. Look at this play. The fake-out, the misdirection, the sudden change in tempo. It's exactly like the fleet movements they used in the Perseus attack. They're not just studying our wars," Ghost added, his survival-trained mind making connections. "They're studying how humans think when we turn conflict into entertainment. Every game, every sport, every competition. It's all about strategy." The display shifted to an esports tournament from 2024. "This is brilliant," Zira muttered. "Humans are the only species that deliberately creates artificial conflicts for fun. We've spent thousands of years developing strategies through play. And now they're weaponizing our games against us," Sarah concluded. "But why?" "The Vex Thor have their own strategic traditions." The answer came from an unexpected source. Maya had been running chess algorithms against the Vex Thor attack patterns, and her analysis finally completed. "Because their strategies are perfect," she said. "Perfect, predictable, and ultimately limited. They evolved toward pure logic, just like the Confederation. But humans, we kept our chaos." A new alert flashed across the display. 3 more human colonies had gone dark, but something was different about these attacks. Ghost noticed it first. "They're not destroying infrastructure," he said, studying the tactical feeds. "They're setting up arenas, gaming centers, training facilities. They're farming us," Zira whispered, her young face pale. harvesting our strategic instincts. Sarah made a decision. We need to feed them false data, corrupt their understanding of human strategy. Maya, can you create chess games that look brilliant that are actually flawed? Already on it. I'll design sequences that seem to follow human tactical logic, but lead to guaranteed failure. Ghost, we need survival scenarios that would only make sense to vex Thor's psychology. He nodded grimly. I'll create situations where their logical approach would seem optimal, but would get them killed in reality. Zira, you're our key player. Can you make these deceptions look legitimate in their data mining? The teenager's smile was almost predatory. They want to study human games. Let's give them the greatest game of all, the one where they think they're winning. The team worked through the night, crafting their deception. Maya created chess matches that were masterpieces of misdirection, each one containing subtle traps that would only become apparent after being used in actual combat. Ghost designed survival scenarios that played to vex Thor's strengths while hiding fatal flaws. But it was Zira who brought it all together, weaving their deceptions into the vast tapestry of human gaming history. She didn't just plant false data. She created an entire false evolution of human strategic thinking. Done, she announced as dawn broke over the lunar surface. When they analyze this, they'll see exactly what they expect. Humans gradually developing more logical, predictable strategies. They'll think we're evolving toward their way of thinking. Sarah was about to congratulate the team when Ghost suddenly stiffened. Wait, if they've been studying our games. His voice trailed off as he ran to the tactical display. The others watched in horror as he overlaid historical data onto current Vex Thor fleet movements. The pattern was unmistakable. They're not just using our strategies, Maya breathed. They're using Alexander the Great's tactics from the Battle of Gaugamela. The feigned retreat, the decisive cavalry charge, combined with modern Korean StarCraft strategies, Zira added. The multi-pronged harassment while building up an unstoppable late-game force, and survival techniques from Earth's harshest environments. Ghost finished. They're not just copying our moves, they're learning to think like us. Sarah stared at the display, watching as humanity's entire strategic history was turned against them. Their deception plan now seemed hopelessly inadequate. New plan, she announced. We're not going to feed them false data. We're going to show them why human strategy can't be reduced to data. Zira, how long would it take to set up a galactic-scale game server? The teenager's eyes widened as she grasped the implications. You want to. You're insane. I love it. Give me 12 hours. Maya, Ghost, we need every human strategist we can find. Champions, veterans, even casual players. Everyone who's ever played a game and developed their own style. As her team scrambled to implement the new plan, Sarah watched the tactical display. The Vex Thor thought they understood human strategy because they'd studied our history. They were about to learn that human strategy wasn't about the past. It was about our infinite capacity to create new ways to play the game. The real question was, would they learn this lesson before or after it destroyed them? That's not a fleet formation, Kill protested, their crystalline form vibrating with distress. It's a beehive swarm, Sarah completed, watching as human ships moved in patterns that seemed random but held a deeper natural order. Specifically, the dance patterns bees used to communicate the location of flowers. The tactical display showed human forces across 3 sectors, all moving in ways that defied conventional military doctrine. Some ships followed the fluid movements of a jazz improvisation. Others mirrored the seemingly chaotic but perfectly coordinated movements of a murmuration of starlings. Maya stood at a secondary console, her hands moving chess pieces that weren't there. The Vex Thor are trying to predict our next move based on historical patterns. But nature doesn't follow historical patterns, it follows mathematical ones. And mathematics can be jazz, Zira added, her neural interfaces glowing as she fed new movement patterns into the fleet coordination system. The golden ratio, but with random variations. Fibonacci sequences, but with deliberate errors. Ghost, who had been quietly studying the enemy movements, suddenly straightened. They're adapting. Look at their response pattern. The Vex-Thor fleet was shifting, their perfect formations dissolving into something more human. They had abandoned their logical progressions and were now implementing guerrilla warfare tactics seen in a dozen Earth conflicts. They're learning, Sarah muttered. Every time we show them a new pattern, they absorb it, adapt it, turn it against us. Then we show them something they can't adapt to, Maya declared. She pulled up her latest chess analysis. Look at this game from 2157. The Grandmaster deliberately played bad moves. Moves so bad they became good because no one expected them. Zira's eyes lit up. Beautiful chaos. We don't just make unpredictable moves. We make wrong moves that become right moves because they're wrong. The Confederation representatives watched in horror as human fleet commanders began receiving their new orders. Ships moved into positions that any tactical computer would declare suicidal. Defensive lines buckled in ways that seemed to invite defeat. This is madness, Kill protested. You're sacrificing your forces. No, Ghost replied, a rare smile crossing his face. We're teaching them the hardest lesson I learned on Kepler 186F. Sometimes survival looks exactly like failure. The results were immediate and devastating. Vex-Thor forces, programmed to recognize and counter human strategies, found themselves attacking empty space where their tactical computers assured them human ships should be. They charged into apparent weaknesses only to find themselves caught in intricate traps. They're trying to predict where we'll be based on what a rational human commander would do, Sarah explained. But we're not being rational. We're being human. The strategy worked brilliantly. For about 6 hours. Then the Vex-Thor did something unexpected. They started making mistakes. Deliberate mistakes. They were learning to be unpredictable. This is bad, Maya announced, her chess master's mind seeing the pattern. They're not just copying our tactics anymore. They're understanding the philosophy behind them. Zira's fingers flew across her interface. Their fleet movements. They're using patterns from Earth sports now, but not just copying them. They're innovating, creating new plays based on human principles. Ghost pointed to a particular formation. That's a hunting pattern I used on Kepler, but they've modified it for space warfare. They're not just learning our moves, they're learning how we think. Sarah watched as the tactical situation deteriorated. Human fleets were still holding their own. But the Vex-Thor were adapting faster than anyone had predicted. The beautiful chaos strategy wasn't failing. It was working too well, teaching their enemy the very unpredictability that made humanity dangerous. New strategy, she announced. Zira, how's that game server coming? Ready to go live. But Commander, if we do this, we'll be giving them access to the real-time strategic thinking of every human player in the galaxy. Exactly. Sarah's smile was fierce. They want to learn how humans think. Let's drown them in human thought. Not just military strategy, not just historical battles. Everything. Every game, every player, every wild idea, and crazy tactic. The ultimate information overload. Maya breathed. They won't be able to process it all. Better, Ghost added. They won't be able to resist trying. Sarah turned to Cathal. We need the Confederation's quantum network. All of it. The crystalline being shimmered with uncertainty. What you're proposing, it would expose our entire strategic infrastructure to chaos. Yes, Sarah agreed. And that's exactly what we need right now. The Vex-Thor think they can understand human strategy by studying it. We're going to show them that human strategy isn't something you study. It's something you drown in. As her team rushed to implement the new plan, Sarah watched the tactical display. The Vex-Thor had wanted to understand human unpredictability. They were about to experience it on a scale that no single species could comprehend. The question was, would it break them or make them even more dangerous? The first reports from New Terra Colony made no sense. The Vex-Thor had captured the settlement, But instead of their usual pattern of destruction, they were building something. Gaming centers, Zyra confirmed, analyzing the drone footage. Hundreds of them. They're forcing the colonists to play strategy games nonstop. Ghost studied the architectural plans with growing unease. These aren't just gaming centers. Look at the neural monitoring equipment. They're not interested in the games. They're studying how humans think while playing them. Maya's hands clenched into fists. They're using our people as test subjects, learning how we develop strategies in real time. Sarah watched the feeds from multiple colonies, all showing the same pattern. The Vexthor had evolved beyond simply studying human history. They were now harvesting human strategic thinking directly from the source. "Commander," a junior officer interrupted, his face pale. "We're detecting massive data transfers from the captured colonies. They're uploading something into their neural networks." Zira's eyes widened as she decoded the data streams. They're not just watching humans play. They're analyzing the neural patterns that occur during strategic decision-making. They're trying to reverse engineer human intuition. "Can they do that?" Kithel asked, their crystalline form clouded with concern. "Theoretically, no," Maya replied. "Human strategic thinking isn't just about pattern recognition. It's about emotion, instinct, cultural context." "But they're trying," Ghost interrupted. "And they're getting better. Look at these battle reports. Their strategies are becoming more elegant. They're developing their own style, based on human principles but twisted through their alien perspective." Sarah studied the tactical display, watching Vexthor fleet movements that seemed to dance between human unpredictability and alien precision. They're evolving. Every human they study, every game they analyze, makes them more dangerous. A new alert flashed across the screens. Another colony had fallen, but this one was different. The Vexthor weren't building gaming centers. They were constructing massive simulation chambers. "No," Zyra whispered, decoding the architectural plans. No. They're not just studying how we play games. They're creating artificial scenarios, testing how humans react to different strategic challenges. They're running experiments, Maya realized, putting humans in impossible situations just to see how we think our way out of them. Ghost's face darkened, like what I faced on Kepler 186F. They want to understand how humans survive when survival seems impossible. Sarah felt a chill as she grasped the full implications. They're not trying to beat us. They're trying to become us. Or rather, their version of us. The tactical display updated, showing new Vexthor formations that seemed to flicker between multiple strategic doctrines simultaneously. They were implementing human chaos theory, but with an alien precision that made it even more deadly. "Commander," Zyra called out, her voice tense. "I finished analyzing their neural network architecture. They're not just learning human strategies. They're trying to replicate human neural pathways. They think if they can copy how our brains work during strategic planning, they can evolve beyond their species' limitations," Sarah finished. "That's why they're so obsessed with human games and survival scenarios. They're not studying our strategies. They're studying our capacity for strategic thinking itself." Kthal's crystalline form pulsed with agitation. "This violates every principle of evolutionary progression. Species cannot simply copy another species' cognitive patterns." "Tell them that," Ghost replied grimly. "They're not playing by anyone's rules anymore." Maya suddenly straightened, her chess master's mind seeing a pattern in the chaos. But that's their weakness. They're so focused on understanding how we think, they've forgotten why we think the way we do. "Explain," Sarah demanded. "Human unpredictability isn't just about neural pathways or strategic doctrines. It's about everything that makes us human. Our emotions, our cultures, our histories. They can copy our tactics, even our thought patterns, but they can't copy what makes those patterns meaningful." Zira's fingers flew across her interface. "The game server is ready. But Commander, if we proceed, we won't just be showing them human strategy. We'll be exposing them to the full spectrum of human strategic consciousness. Sarah looked at her team. A chess master who saw beauty in aggression, a survivor who found peace in gardens, a teenager who turned chaos into art, and a military commander who had learned to trust instinct over logic. "That's exactly what we need," she said. "They want to understand human strategy. Let's show them that human strategy isn't just about winning or losing. It's about how we play the game." As her team prepared to launch their desperate gambit, Sarah watched the tactical display. The Vex Thor thought they could evolve by studying human thought patterns. They were about to learn that some things couldn't be learned. They had to be lived. The Luna base's observation deck offered a perfect view of Earth, but Ghost wasn't looking at the planet. His eyes were fixed on the tactical displays showing Vex Thor movements across 3 sectors. "They're using my techniques," he muttered. "Not just the obvious ones, the desperate ones. The things I did on Kepler when I was alone and dying." His hands trembled slightly. "Things I never reported. Never told anyone." Sarah found him there at what passed for midnight on the base. "Ghost, we need you in tactical." "No." His voice was flat. "You don't need me. They have everything I know now. Everything I am." Without another word, he grabbed his survival pack and headed for the airlock. "Ghost." Sarah moved to stop him, but Maya caught her arm. "Let him go," the chess master said softly. "He needs to process this. The Vex Thor aren't just using his strategies, they're using his trauma." In the main tactical room, Zyra sat surrounded by neural interfaces, her young face drawn with exhaustion. Data streams reflected in her unfocused eyes as she tried to model every possible Vex Thor response to their planned counteroffensive. "They're learning too fast," she whispered. "Every simulation I run, they adapt before it's complete. It's like they're reading my mind while I'm reading theirs. The patterns, they're so beautiful, so perfect. I can almost see." Her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed, neural feedback flooding her system. Medical teams rushed in as Sarah and Maya watched helplessly. "She pushed too hard," Maya said, checking Zyra's vital signs. "Trying to outthink an entire species that's trying to think like us. It's too much for any human mind." The teenager's neural interfaces were still active, streaming data even as she lay unconscious. On the main display, her last analysis flashed a warning. The Vex Thor weren't just adapting to human strategy. They were starting to predict it. Maya turned to her own workstation, where dozens of chess games played out simultaneously. She had been analyzing human victories throughout history, looking for patterns that might help them understand the Vex Thor's learning process. "Commander," she called suddenly. "I found something. Our most successful strategies. They're not coming from our victories." Sarah looked up from Zyra's medical readings. "What do you mean?" "Look at these games. The most unpredictable, most innovative human strategies. They all came from losses. Desperate situations. Moments when we had nothing left to lose." Maya's eyes gleamed with revelation. "We're not at our most human when we're winning. We're at our most human when we're backed into a corner." The tactical display updated, showing new Vex Thor formations. They had taken Ghost's survival techniques, Zyra's chaos patterns, and Maya's chess strategies, combining them into something terrifyingly effective. "They're not just learning from our successes," Maya continued. "They're learning from our failures, our desperate gambles, our last stands. They're learning that human unpredictability peaks when we're about to lose everything." A proximity alert blared. Ghost's transmitter signal had vanished near the Mare Imbrium. Search teams reported signs of a struggle, but no body. They took him, Sarah realized. They'll want to study him directly. Understand how he thinks, how he survived. "Commander," a junior officer interrupted. "Message from the Vex Thor. Text only." The words appeared on the main screen. "Thank you for the teacher." Maya's chess pieces clattered to the floor. "They're not trying to beat us anymore. They're trying to become us. Every strategy we use, every tactic we develop. We're just teaching them more about human thinking." Zira stirred on her medical bed, her eyes fluttering open. "The game server," she mumbled. "We have to overload them. Not just with strategies, with humanity." Sarah looked at her broken team. Ghost vanished into the enemy's hands. Zira pushed to the brink of mural collapse. Maya, realizing that every victory only made their enemy stronger. The Confederation representatives had withdrawn to their ships, leaving humanity to face the monster they had created. The Vexthor weren't just an alien threat anymore. They were humanity's dark reflection, learning to wield chaos with mechanical precision. "New strategy," Sarah announced. "Maya, you said we're most human when we're losing. Then let's lose. Spectacularly." "Commander, the game server goes live in 6 hours. But we're not going to use it to show them our best strategies. We're going to show them something they can't copy. The human spirit." Maya's eyes widened as she understood. "Not just games and battles. Everything," Sarah confirmed. "Every human story, every last stand, every moment of defiance in the face of certain defeat. Let them try to quantify that." As her remaining team rushed to modify the plan, Sarah stared at the message from the Vexthor. They thought capturing Ghost would give them insight into human survival instincts. They were about to learn that survival wasn't just about staying alive. It was about what you were willing to die for. And somewhere in the Mare Imbrium, a gardener who had survived 3 years alone on a death world was about to teach them that lesson personally. "This isn't just a game server," Zira explained from her medical bed, neural interfaces still glowing faintly. "It's a consciousness engine. Every human who connects will add their own strategic instincts to the collective." The tactical room had been transformed. Where once there were military displays, now thousands of game interfaces flickered. Chessboards, sports fields, survival simulations, and battle scenarios all ran simultaneously, each one powered by human minds across the galaxy. "First wave of players is logging in," Maya reported. 10 million, 20 million. They keep coming. Everyone from professional strategists to casual gamers. Sarah watched the numbers climb. The Confederation had protested, of course. Connecting millions of human minds to a quantum network was dangerous enough. Deliberately exposing that network to Vexthor observation was, in their words, evolutionary suicide. "Signal from Ghost," a communications officer announced. The tactical display showed a weak transmission from the Mare Imbrium. No words, just a pattern. The same one he'd used to survive his first night on Kepler 186. "He's alive," Sarah breathed. "And he's telling us something." She studied the pattern. "They're trying to break him, understand how he thinks. But he's not breaking. He's teaching." "Commander," Maya's voice was urgent. "The Vexthor fleet is moving. All of it. They're converging on our position." The tactical display showed thousands of ships, each one moving with that uncanny blend of human unpredictability and alien precision. They had learned well from their human studies. "Good," Sarah said. Zira launched the program. The teenager's fingers danced across her neural interface. Across the galaxy, millions of humans began playing. Not just military simulations, but every kind of game imaginable. Chess masters crafted impossible strategies. Athletes designed plays that defied physics. Children invented games with rules that changed every second. "They're watching," Maya reported. "Vexthor data collectors are trying to analyze every game, every decision, every move." "Now," Sarah ordered. Phase 2. Zira pressed a sequence of commands. Suddenly, the games began to merge. Chess pieces moved according to football strategies. Survival scenarios followed the logic of children's games. Military formations danced to the rhythms of jazz. "Their neural networks can't process it," Zira said, grinning despite her exhaustion. "They're trying to find patterns, but there are too many. Too much human chaos all at once." The Vexthor fleet's movements became erratic. Ships followed multiple strategic doctrines simultaneously, trying to adapt to the flood of human thought patterns. "They're still coming," Maya warned. "But look at their formation. It's beautiful in a terrifying way. They're creating entirely new strategies, combining everything they've learned about human thinking." Another signal from Ghost, stronger this time. Not just a survival pattern, but something more. He was moving through the Vex-Thor holding facility, and he wasn't trying to escape. He was leading them on a chase, teaching them one final lesson about human survival. He's showing them why we play games, Sarah realized. Not to win, but to learn, to grow, to become more than we are. The game server's numbers had reached 1 billion players. Humanity wasn't just playing. They were creating. Every game spawned new rules, new strategies, new ways of thinking. The Vex-Thor neural networks struggled to keep up, trying to understand not just the moves, but the creativity behind them. "We're not going to beat them," Maya said softly. "We're going to transform them." The Vex-Thor fleet entered lunar orbit. Their ships moved like a fluid organism, each vessel both independent and part of a greater whole. They had achieved what they wanted, a perfect synthesis of human chaos and alien order. But something was happening. The fleet's movements began to change, not breaking down, but evolving. Ships began moving in ways that were neither human nor Vex-Thor, but something entirely new. "They're not copying us anymore," Zyra whispered. "They're learning how to learn, how to create, how to play." Ghost's signal changed location. He wasn't running anymore. The Vex-Thor weren't chasing him. They were playing, learning, growing. Sarah watched as the greatest space battle in history transformed into something else entirely. Not a fight for survival, but a dance of evolution. The Vex-Thor had wanted to understand human strategy. Instead, they were understanding something far more important: the joy of the game itself. New transmission from the Vex-Thor fleet, the communications officer announced. The message was simple: "We begin to understand the game, NAVRNDs." Sarah looked at her team, the exhausted teenager who had turned warfare into art, the chess master who saw beauty in chaos, and somewhere out there, the survivor who had taught an alien species how to play. "No," she agreed. "The game never ends. That's what makes it beautiful." The real question was, what would the galaxy look like when everyone learned how to play? The observation deck of the Confederation Strategic Command buzzed with activity as representatives from every spacefaring species gathered to witness something unprecedented: a joint human Vex-Thor strategic exercise. Ghost stood at the center of the room, his weathered hands moving pieces on a 3-dimensional board that combined elements of chess, Go, and quantum warfare. Across from him, a Vex-Thor strategic master mimicked human expressions of concentration, its crystalline neural pathways glowing with complex thought patterns. "They're not just copying anymore," Maya observed, watching the game unfold. "Look at that move. It's neither human nor Vex-Thor. It's something entirely new." 3 months had passed since the great confrontation in lunar orbit. The Vex-Thor fleet's evolution had sparked a transformation that rippled through both species. Their desperate attempt to understand human unpredictability had led them to a greater discovery: the power of creative evolution. Final reports from the Colonial Rehabilitation Centers, Zyra announced. Her neural interface is now modified to communicate directly with Vex-Thor networks. The last of the testing facilities have been converted into actual gaming centers, both species learning from each other. Sarah watched as human and Vex-Thor children played together in the converted facilities, each teaching the other new ways to think, new ways to play, new ways to grow. The Vex-Thor's rigid logical structures were learning flexibility, while human chaos was finding new forms of order. "The Confederation Strategic Council is ready for your presentation," Commander Cathal announced, their crystalline form now decorated with patterns that seemed almost playful. A change unthinkable just months ago. Sarah nodded to her team. They had all changed. Ghost's survival skills had evolved into teaching tools, helping others understand the beauty of adaptation. Maya's chess mastery had expanded into entirely new forms of strategic thinking. Zyra's young mind had become a bridge between human and Vexthor consciousness, exploring possibilities neither species had imagined alone. The Strategic Innovation Division, Sarah began, addressing the Council, represents more than just a military partnership. It's a recognition that true strategic mastery comes not from perfecting one way of thinking, but from endless evolution. The main display showed the results of their work. Across the galaxy, human and Vexthor strategists were collaborating on everything from military doctrine to children's games. Each species brought their unique strengths: human creativity and intuition, Vexthor precision and pattern recognition. We propose, Sarah continued, a fundamental shift in how we approach galactic security, not through perfect predictability or pure chaos, but through continuous innovation. Ghost and his Vexthor opponent had reached a crucial point in their game. Both players paused, studying a situation that had never existed before in the history of either species. The Vexthor sought to understand human unpredictability. Maya explained to the Council. What they found instead was the key to their own evolution. And in helping them grow, we discovered new aspects of ourselves. Zyra stepped forward, her neural interfaces harmonizing with Vexthor communication systems. The game servers have become more than strategic training tools. They're incubators for new forms of thought, new ways of solving problems, new paths of species evolution. The council chamber erupted in discussion as representatives debated the implications. The old guard feared the unpredictability of this new paradigm, while younger members saw the potential for growth. In the background, Ghost and the Vexthor Master had reached their decision. Together, they made a move that broke every rule of their hybrid game and created something beautiful in the process. That, Sarah said, pointing to the game, is our future. Not humans teaching Vexthor, or Vexthor copying humans, but both species transcending their limitations through play. The Council's decision was unprecedented. Unanimous approval for the new Strategic Innovation Division, with joint human-Vexthor leadership. As the chamber cleared, Sarah found her team gathered at the observation window, watching Earth and the transformed Vexthor fleet share the same orbit in harmony. You know, Ghost mused, on Kepler, I learned that survival wasn't about being the strongest or the smartest. It was about being willing to change. Maya nodded. Every great chess master knows that the game isn't about the pieces. It's about how you grow through playing. And every gamer knows, Zyra added with a smile, that the best games are the ones that never end. Sarah looked at her team, then out at the stars where countless new strategies waited to be discovered. The Vexthor had wanted to understand human unpredictability. Instead, they had helped humanity understand something about themselves. That the greatest strategy of all was not to win, but to keep evolving. Ready for the next game? She asked. The answers came not just from her team, but from every human and Vexthor in the chamber. Always. The universe, after all, was infinite, and they had only just started to play.